All right, listeners, get ready. We're diving deep into some seriously ancient Hindu wisdom today.
Sounds intense. I'm ready.
You guys gave us the Avadhoota Gita, a text, and get this, it's attributed to the sage Dattatreya.
Ah, Dattatreya, fascinating figure.
Right, and he's not just any sage. Many consider him an incarnation of, get this, Brahma, Vishnu, Adi Shiva, all in one.
A triple threat, a true embodiment of divine power.
So we're going to tackle the Avadhoota Gita's core teachings, focusing on non-duality and the self's nature.
These are some of the most profound concepts in all of spirituality.
It's going to be a journey beyond the senses for sure, full of mind-bending ideas, maybe a few aha moments for our listeners.
You know, what I find captivating about the Avadhoota Gita is that it isn't just some old scroll gathering dust.
Oh, definitely not.
It's a cornerstone of Advaita Vedanta, a major school of Hindu philosophy.
Right, it's a big deal.
And its exploration of non-duality is considered one of the most profound out there.
So Dattatreya, the man himself, where do we even begin with his story?
Well, his origin story is unlike any other in Hindu mythology. Imagine the combined energies of Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the preserver, and Shiva, the destroyer.
Whoa, that's a lot of power in one being.
All converging to bring forth Dattatreya. And get this, from birth, he chose the path of an Avadhoota.
An Avadhoota, that sounds pretty intense.
It is. It means a renunciate, someone who lives free from worldly attachments.
I remember reading that right after he was born, he refused to wear clothes.
Yes. He stated he'd live just as I have come.
What a statement. What does that tell us about how he saw the material world?
It's a symbol of his utter detachment from possessions and societal norms.
So no rebellious phase.
Not at all. From the very beginning, he lived the principles of renunciation. The material world to him was an illusion.
He was walking the walk from day one, literally.
Precisely.
And then he travels ancient India, teaching this concept of non-duality. What does non-duality even mean?
It's the idea that there's only one ultimate reality called Brahman.
Brahman, okay.
Everything we perceive is separate. The world, our individual selves, it's an illusion, obscuring that underlying unity.
So we're all connected.
Exactly. The Avadhoota Gita emphasizes that we are all one with Brahman, inseparable from this ultimate reality.
My mind is already starting to bend. And the Avadhoota Gita really goes all in on this concept.
Absolutely. It even states, all is verily the absolute self. Distinction and non-distinction do not exist.
Whoa. So if all is Brahman, what about our everyday experiences? The trees, the mountains, even like this coffee I'm drinking, are
Sure.
those illusions too?
Think of it like a mirage. You see a pool of water in the desert, it seems real, but as you get closer, you realize it's an illusion.
Yeah, I get that.
The Avadhoota Gita suggests the 5 elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether, which make up the world, are like that mirage.
They appear real, but they're not the ultimate truth.
Exactly.
This text really lives up to its reputation, but here's where it gets really interesting to me. The Avadhoota Gita also questions traditional spiritual practices.
You're right. It goes beyond just metaphysics.
Dattatreya even suggests that meditation is, get this, an act of ignorance.
A bold statement indeed. It challenges conventional views on spiritual practice.
He says it implies a separation between the meditator and something to meditate on.
His point is, if we are already the self, why meditate?
I mean, meditation is often seen as a pathway to deeper awareness, right?
You're absolutely right. It's a core practice in many traditions.
So to say it might be based on a misconception is a huge statement. It really makes you think.
It certainly challenges our assumptions about the path to liberation.
And he doesn't stop there. Dattatreya claims freedom from reincarnation, limitations of time and space, even good and evil. He says, I am free in the beginning, in the middle, and in the end. I am never bound.
A declaration of absolute freedom, no constraints.
Wow. So he's saying that this state of liberation, of being free, is already within us, and anything that feels like bondage is just part of that illusion.
That's the core message.
Yeah.
Our true nature is freedom itself.
But what does that even mean for us? We still have to deal with everyday life, right?
It's a question that the Avadhoota Gita grapples with as well. Dattatreya isn't saying we should abandon morality or responsibility.
Okay, good to know.
He's pointing to a state of being where actions flow from understanding and unity, not from ego.
So less about anything goes and more about acting from a place of connection.
Yes, precisely. A subtle but crucial distinction.
And how does all of this connect to his unconventional lifestyle? Wandering around without clothes, defying social norms? Was that just a personal quirk or something deeper.
Remember, he refused clothes from birth. It's about transcending the illusory world, rejecting external layers to reveal the true self.
It's not about the clothes themselves, it's about what they represent, all the stuff we cling to.
Exactly. He's a living embodiment of the Avadhoota Gita's message.
He's not just preaching it, he's living it. And isn't the Avadhoota Gita unique in terms of Dattatreya's teachings?
You're right. It isn't the only text attributed to him. There's also the Jivamukta Gita and several tantric works.
Wow, so his influence goes beyond just this one text.
Absolutely. He's a pivotal figure across different spiritual traditions.
So back to the heart of the Avadhoota Gita. If we're all fundamentally Brahmin, already free, what does that mean for us? For our listeners who are dealing with work, family, all the ups and downs of life?
It's a wake-up call. The Avadhoota Gita is urging us to examine our beliefs about reality and ourselves. It's about recognizing our inherent divinity and shedding limiting beliefs.
And it doesn't hold back. One line that struck me was, "There is verily no versification where one knows nothing."
That's an intriguing one.
This whole text is in verse. What do you think Dattatreya meant by that?
It seems to suggest that even these teachings, the words themselves, are just pointers.
So they're guiding us towards a truth that can't be fully captured by language.
Right. True understanding, the direct experience of non-duality, goes beyond words.
So the Avadhoota Gita gives us a framework, but ultimately we need to go beyond even the teachings.
Exactly. It's about direct experience, not just intellectual understanding.
This has been a mind-blowing deep dive so far. We've covered Dattatreya's origin, non-duality, how the Avadhoota Gita challenges our usual ways of seeing the world.
It's a lot to take in.
We've only just scratched the surface, though. There's so much more to uncover in this ancient text.
You know, one thing that strikes me about the Avadhoota Gita is how it weaves these lofty philosophical concepts with practical advice.
I agree. It's not just an abstract treatise, is it?
It really isn't. It offers guidance on how to actually live with this understanding of non-duality.
Right. These ancient texts, they offer timeless wisdom that we can still apply today.
Absolutely.
And speaking of practical advice, the text goes into detail about the path of the Avadhoota.
Ah, yes, a radical way to live.
Definitely not your average self-improvement plan.
It's not for everyone, that's for sure.
So break it down for us. What does it actually mean to live as an Avadhoota?
Well, the Avadhoota, as we've discussed, renounces all worldly attachments.
Okay, so far so good. I'm still with you.
They live outside of societal norms, embracing a state of pure being.
I think I'm starting to get the picture.
Dattatreya describes the Avadhoota in the text as someone who moves about naked, having renounced all, and perceiving the absolute, the all within himself.
Right, and I know that image might raise some eyebrows for our listeners.
Certainly a striking image.
But we have to remember the historical context, right?
Of course.
In ancient India, there was this tradition of ascetics, renunciates, living outside conventional society to pursue spiritual liberation.
Absolutely. A long and respected tradition.
And the Avadhoota path takes it to the extreme.
To the very edge. It's a complete rejection of anything that could create a sense of separation.
Like what? Give us some examples.
Material possessions, social status, even clothing.
It's about getting down to the bare essentials, literally.
Stripping away all the layers, revealing the true self. That pure awareness at our core.
I love how the text keeps pointing back to Dattatreya's own life. He was born in Avadhoota, right? Embodying this path from day one.
It's a striking consistency between his life and his teachings.
Definitely adds a layer of authenticity.
Oh, absolutely. He wasn't just talking the talk. He walked the walk from the very beginning.
So let's get specific. What are the key characteristics of this Avadhoota path?
Well, as we've touched on, renunciation is key. The Avadhoota detaches from possessions, social roles, external identities.
Give up everything.
Well, it can include giving up the pursuit of wealth, status, even relationships.
Whoa, hold on. That's a pretty tall order for most people. I mean, I love my family and I'm pretty attached to my smartphone.
You and me both. It's important to remember, the Avadhoota path, as described in the text, is an archetype.
Okay, so a kind of ideal model.
Exactly. Not necessarily meant to be taken literally by everyone.
So it's more about an internal shift.
You got it. It's about recognizing that true freedom comes from letting go, not clinging to things.
Letting go. It's easier said than done, though.
It is. It's a practice. But it's about understanding that everything is impermanent, even the things we love most.
So how does this connect back to the Avadhoota Gita's teachings on non-duality?
It's all connected. By letting go of attachments, the Avadhoota becomes more aware of that formless reality that underpins everything.
I see. So they start to see through the illusion of separateness.
Yes, recognizing that interconnectedness.
So the Avadhuta's way of life is like a practice to embody non-duality in everything they do.
Precisely. It's a radical path, but it shows us the nature of true freedom.
It reminds me of that phrase from the Upanishads, neti neti, right?
Yeah, not this, not this. Stripping away everything that isn't the self to arrive at the truth.
And the Avadhuta embodies that in a very real way.
Their whole life is a demonstration of neti neti.
Okay, we've talked about renunciation, living outside societal norms, embracing pure being. But what did an Avadhuta actually do all day?
That's a good question. The text doesn't lay out a strict schedule.
So no set routine.
Right, there's a sense of spontaneity, freedom in their actions.
So what did they actually do?
They might wander, spend time in nature, meditate, teach those who seek them out.
So it's more about being present, flowing with life, than sticking to a rigid plan.
Exactly.
It's interesting, though, because they might seem solitary, but they're not really isolated, are they?
Not at all. They're connected to everything around them, seeing the divine in all beings, in all of creation.
It's a bit of a paradox, isn't it? Renouncing the world, yet being deeply engaged with it.
It is a beautiful paradox. It shows us that true renunciation isn't about withdrawing from life, but about engaging with it from a place of understanding.
Engaging with it from a place of wisdom and compassion, right?
Precisely.
Okay, we can probably all agree that most of us aren't ready to become Avadhutas. But are there lessons we can take from this, even if we're not going to give up all our possessions and wander around naked?
Absolutely. I think there are some valuable takeaways for all of us.
Like what? What can we learn from the Avadhuta's way of life?
Well, first, that emphasis on renunciation can help us examine our own attachments. What are we clinging to that might be holding us back?
Okay, so it's like a mental decluttering.
Yes. What are the things, the beliefs, that are no longer serving us?
Letting go to create space for something new.
Exactly. And this applies to more than just material things. We can look at our thoughts, our identities even.
Letting go of those stories that limit us.
And what about living outside societal norms?
Yeah, that part seems pretty challenging in today's world.
It reminds us that true freedom comes from within, not from blindly following what society expects.
So it's about finding our own authentic path.
Exactly. Even if it doesn't fit the mold.
Marching to the beat of our own drum. And what about that connection to nature? Is there something there for us, too?
Definitely. The Avadhuta's immersion in nature reminds us of our own connection to the natural world.
Something we often forget in our tech-filled lives.
Spending time in nature can help us reconnect with that sense of belonging, of being part of something bigger.
We're not separate from nature, we're part of it.
Exactly.
This deep dive into the Avadhoota Gita has been eye-opening, to say the least. We've explored Dattatreya's life, the teachings on non-duality, the practical implications of this radical path.
It's a lot to digest.
But there's one more thing we haven't touched on, Dattatreya's legacy, how his teachings have continued to resonate through history.
You know, it's really amazing how Dattatreya's influence goes way beyond just the Avadhoota Gita.
Yeah, we touched on that earlier, right? He's a pretty popular guy.
Oh, he is. Revered across many different Hindu traditions.
Really? Like which ones?
You name it. Shaivites, Vaishnavites, even those following tantric traditions.
Wow, he's got a wide reach.
He does. Each tradition interprets his teachings in their own way, of course, but they all see him as important.
It's like he's a symbol of unity between these different paths, right?
Exactly. He points to something universal that resonates across those differences.
Yeah, I like that. Especially in today's world where there's so much division.
Right. It's a powerful message.
It really is.
And this inclusiveness, it's even reflected in the range of texts attributed to Dattatreya.
Oh, right. We've talked about the Jivanmukta Gita,
Uh-huh.
which is like a shorter, more focused text on liberation.
Right, more concise.
But there are also all those tantric works.
Yeah, exploring ritual and energy and all that.
So much to explore. We've only just scratched the surface of his teachings.
It's true.
Where should someone go next if they want to learn more? Any recommendations?
It depends what they're interested in, really. Jivanmukta Gita is a good starting point for the idea of liberation.
Right, straight to the point.
The tantric texts, well, those get into some pretty deep practices.
Definitely not for beginners.
Probably not. But the beauty of these traditions is that there's always something new to discover.
It's a lifelong journey, isn't it?
It is.
Always more to learn.
Exactly.
Well, that's what we're all about here on The Deep Dive, right?
Exploring and questioning and digging deeper.
Exactly. So, as we wrap up our deep dive into the Avadhoota Gita, what are some key takeaways for our listeners?
The Avadhoota Gita is a wake-up call, you know? It challenges us to question everything we think we know about reality, about ourselves.
It's about looking within,
It is. And realizing our true nature, shedding those limiting beliefs that hold us back.
letting go of what no longer serves us.
Yes. And embracing a life of freedom,
It's a journey, that's for sure.
a journey of self-discovery.
And remember that line from Dattatreya, there is verily no versification where one knows nothing.
Ah, yes, a cryptic one.
This whole text is in verse. What do you think he meant by that? Maybe a hint that we need to go beyond even the teachings themselves.
Something to think about.
Definitely. Something for our listeners to ponder. Until next time, keep diving